This is RadioFire.com. I go by the name of Dominic K. Thank you for joining me. As you can see, I have a special guest, and I'm very glad to have you here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm April J, owner of WPB Networks.
All right, April J in the building. I'm glad that you're here to
Thank
talk
you.
with me.
I appreciate it.
And so many things, so many things going through my mind.
Right.
Are you from Baltimore?
No, actually, I'm not. I was born in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And I moved to Baltimore when I was about 8 years old. So I actually was raised here. So, but yeah.
So like high school, you went to high school here?
I went to high school here. I went to Baltimore City Community College.
Okay.
Well, no, Baltimore City College. So yeah, so I'm a city knight.
So like you see people with the ring. Like
I represent the
ring. Wonderful. So like coming up, were you shy?
You know what? It's interesting because a lot of people really don't know my background, but I grew up single child, well, only child to my mom. Me and my mom she raised me because when I said we lived in Denver, and her and my father were together for a while, and then my father ended up leaving, walking out. So, me and my mom actually were homeless for probably about a year and a half. And one morning, and then she found a place. We ended up staying in a place. We were there for about 3 months. We came home one day and she got off of work because my mom worked. She worked in the hospital. And all of our stuff, they had set all of our stuff out. So that day she just picked up whatever she could. And she said, you know what, we're going to Baltimore. And we got on a plane and came to Baltimore. And I was about 8 years old. So we stayed with my grandparents. So that was like, you had to grow up real fast. So, definitely. I mean, once I got here, I was around a lot of my cousins. I was a little bit shy though. I was a little kind of sheltered a little bit, but for the most part, I was pretty normal kid.
Yeah. And so how did you get involved in media?
Wow. I've been in real estate for over 20 something years. And one day I decided I wanted to do an online magazine. So I actually had a conversation with a good friend of mine, B. West. And I actually met her through my husband. So me and her started.
R.I.P.
Yeah. So but we started this magazine together. And finally, one day I said, you know what? I want to do an online radio station. So really didn't know how about to go, building a website, how to get the stream, anything like that. So it took me about 6 months of research. And I finally found a company that was willing to really walk me through it. And I actually learned how to build websites through just reading, going to the library, picking up books, and just kind of trial and error. And it was it was a lot. But once I got started, my first show, we actually had a little computer on a desk, and that's how we started WPB Radio. And the first personality I had on the air was Jammer. So he did a show. And then finally we ended up moving over to Charles Street. We had a studio. And then we started Women's Talk, which was myself and B. West. So we started Women's Talk and we did our first show. And we were on the air for like 3 hours. But we was talking to a lady who had lived with AIDS for over 20 something years.
Wow.
And it was just such an interesting conversation. So from there, kind of build and build and build. So, Women's Talk is basically one of the first shows on WPB Radio. And we kind of grew and ended up going into TV. So, it was a learning, very, very learning process, but it was very rewarding because, in the end, not only did we start WPB Radio, we did Hot 695, which my daughters created, and then we did the gospel station. So, it was it was very rewarding, and I really enjoyed it. So,
Did you ever think that you would be on as far as the personality side, or was your plans to be the executive behind the scenes?
you know what, at first there wasn't any plans to be behind the mic, but then I just, the more I talked with my co-host at the time, B, she, I told her, I was sitting down and I told her, I said, I really want to start this show, but I don't know how to go about it. And then we was talking. I said, you know what, you should be on there with me. And she was like, and it's kind of like, and she was like, okay, let's do it. So it was kind of started from there, but it was really like, it just kind of grew from there. So, it was a little challenging at first. And I have to say, Jammer actually really helped me a lot. I mean, he showed me how to talk on the mic. He showed me how to really be a personality. So I really have to give a lot of credit to him, really kind of taking me under his wing and really showing me the ropes. So
he's a real professional.
He really is.
If he was here, he'd probably say, "You're one of the good ones."
He
right?
would say that. He would say that. He would definitely say that.
And so your show mainly focuses on issues for women,
right?
Obviously, something near and dear to your heart.
It really is.
How easy is it to talk to, I guess, people that you don't know about, like, personal things like that?
I started out talking to young girls in school, and what I learned with them is that kids are very perceptive. And they're not going to open up to you unless you open up to them. So, just talking with them and kind of telling them how I grew up, and, I'm not that much different from you. And, as that grew, then I started talking to other women and really talking to them about my experiences growing up, just kind of, marriage, kids, all of that. And I realized that there are a lot of women out there with similar stories, but from different perspectives, but we all can relate to how we really kind of deal with things or feel about things. So, I realize that there's a lot of strong women out there having to deal with a lot, especially when you have kids. So
absolutely. And I mean, I don't know, like, how to word this. I mean, as far as what you're going through, what can you say about the experience, like where you are? Of course, you're not through it, but like from where you are right now, from where you've been, like, what advice can you give?
What I've learned is that, as a woman, you get married, you have kids, and you kind of build your life from there. You never expect things to just happen or fall apart or whatever. And, like I tell women, I've been married for 17 years. And, when you're with someone that long and you build so much, a family, a business, a household, you never expect things to just unravel or even fall apart. But you kind of learn that through it all, it's meant to break you, but it can only do as much as you allow it to do. So, and I'm not going to say it's not easy. It really, it's not easy. And I learned so much about myself. I really did. I often tell people, I'm going through a divorce right now. And I've been separated from my husband for probably about a year. And through the course of the whole relationship, through everything, happening around us and happening to us, I realized that, I have these 2 kids, and I came from being a married woman to now being a single parent. But through it all, I realized that for the past probably 2 years, I really was not happy. And I didn't realize that. I was always the more and more I thought about it, I was always recognized as somebody's wife. I became so embedded of not being an individual that I ended up just being somebody's wife. And I was comfortable with that until I had to really be on my own. So I realized that, as much as I wanted to try to keep my marriage together, and as much as I try to fight for it, I realized that, wow, I wasn't really happy. I really wasn't. And I didn't learn that on my own. I actually went into therapy for a while. And I learned so much about myself. I learned that the person that I made myself into being, I didn't like who she was. I really didn't. I didn't like who she turned into be. I didn't like who she was trying to be. And I said, you know what? I can't be that person anymore. And once I realized that that person was not me, I was like, you know what? I got to break free from this. I really did. And once I really broke free from it is when I really started being happy again. I started, realizing that, my kids needed somebody who was, not somebody that was going to fall completely apart. Not saying that they didn't see me, have my moments, but through it all, I wanted them to look at their mom and be like, you know what? My mom went through all of that, but she came out much better than what she was. And I didn't realize that. I realized that for a long time, I was walking in this fog and didn't know it. So,
do you think that quite possibly at some point in time you might have left if the situation didn't play out the way that it did? Do you think that's possible eventually?
You know what? I don't know. I really don't know. I had a lot of conversations with my pastor, and he said to me, you know what, April? Sometimes things are removed out of our lives because God knows you're not going to leave it. That person had to walk away because you weren't strong enough to do it. But you got to realize that the reason why it happened was because you had a bigger purpose in your life. And I realized that for so long, I wanted to help women. I wanted to express as far as what I've gone through growing up, because I was a child of physical and sexual abuse, not from my parents, but by people that we lived with. So, I realized that in order for me to really, really understand me, I had to go through what I had to go through. And I don't regret any of that. I don't look at it as, oh my gosh, or woe is me, or, I'm want pity or anything like that, because I don't want any of that. To me, this was a learning process for me. And I learned that I'm entitled to how I feel, how I express myself, and I don't have to give any apologies for that. So, it was, like I said, it was something that I realized I had to go through. But for would I have walked away? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know, because I was, I was so much for my marriage. So, but it just didn't work out that way. And, I realized that everything happens for a reason. So.
How difficult has it been for your girls?
My girls are they're so resilient. They've grown up so much. My oldest daughter will be 16 this year. And I have seen her just, oh my gosh, just grow into this young lady so fast. But she's like, she's like very strong-willed. She's very headstrong. She knows what she wants. She told me, she says she wants to be a doctor, and You know, she already has what school she wants to go to, how she, and, you know, it's like I said, it hasn't been easy. And, you know, they've had to deal with a lot. I never wanted them to go through what I had to go through as a child because it took me a long time to really get past it. So, but, you know, all in all, I think they are, you know, they're good kids. And we've kind of built this even stronger bond. And I noticed that even my two girls, you know, they're sisters, but they're like each other's really, really best friends. So they're like super, super close. So, you know, all in all, they're doing very well. So I'm proud of them.
So as you're coming, you know, like on the other side of this, what so many things obviously about yourself, but now it seems like you're taking a more public role, like a more in the front role,
Right.
Than you were before, and I think that's good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've never been a person that's really been out there like that. I've always been comfortable with being behind the scenes, but I realized that I kind of was pushed out there. You know, a lot of women, you know, they would hit me on Facebook or inbox me. It was like, April, I really would like for you to come and talk. You know, I just recently talked at my church on Mother's Day, and it was like, I think it's more therapeutic. The more I talk about it, the more it kind of really helps me. And, you know, like I said, I'm kind of really, like I said, I'm happy where I am. And, you know, I never was into being a public speaker. That really wasn't me. That really wasn't something I wanted to get into. But the more and more I did it, I realized that it was more not just for me, but for the women who have similar stories as I do. And I wanted them to know that, yeah, you'll go through it, but in the end, you'll be better for it and you'll be stronger for it. And you can't let it break you. That's the thing. You just can't let it break you.
Going through the divorce, has this been the most difficult thing you've had to deal with?
For the most part, it's been one of the most difficult things. You know, like I said, I've been through a lot in my life. A lot of things that a lot of people, you know, don't know is that, you know, I've been through tragedy. I've been through heartache and heartbreak. But this was probably one of the most difficult. But in the same sense, I feel like it's going to be more of a release for me. More of a, where you can, I guess that movie Waiting to Exhale, like when you take that deep breath, you're like, okay, you know what? It's over. I can finally really move on. So, you know, that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah. And, you know, I've never been married, but so the most difficult thing that I've had to deal with, so I was raising who I thought was my son, and I found out when he was 7 that he was not.
Oh, wow.
And he found out when he was 11. So I didn't, I still stayed in his life up until he was 11. And so his father was married. And he didn't come into his life at that point in time. So he got divorced, and then at 11, you know, he's there. And so that was a difficult thing for me. And so for me, when I found out, initially I was embarrassed and I didn't want people to know. But, you know, gradually it came out, and, you know, and obviously there's some people that don't know and some people that do. But something that you said resonated with me is just the more I talked about it, the easier that it got. And once I kind of let go of what I was viewing as shame, and then other people had this, you know, a story like that, and then you were able to find, you know, comfort in sharing stories and talking. And so that's good. I mean, that's good. And like you said, therapy, absolutely.
It does. You know, a lot of people, I think we as the Black community, we shy away from, oh my gosh, you can't go and talk to a therapist. But for
Right.
me, it was very helpful because I realized a lot. Like I realized so much about myself that I was just like, oh my gosh. And just the fact of talking to somebody and them not knowing you, not really knowing the situation, they just really listening to you, and then they're listening to you and then they're saying to you, okay, well, did you ever think about it this way? You know, because I tell people, you know, when I first got married, you know, it's not that I didn't care about my husband, it's not that I didn't love him, but I realized I was never in love with him when I first got married. I really wasn't. You know, I was pregnant. But if he had said to me, you know what, I don't want to get married right now, I'd have been perfectly fine with that. Because, you know, I was working, I had my own place, I had my own car. And at the time, I really don't think I was truly ready for marriage. And it took me a little while to really, you know, find that love. But once I did, and I think as women, once we find it, we love hard. So, you know, and I don't fault him for that. And I don't even fault him for how I felt for the last 2 years, because I think both of us weren't happy, but we were just going through these emotions. But neither one of us was really, really happy. And, you know, did that lead to things? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can't speak for him. I can only speak for me. But for me, it was more of, you know, one thing the therapist said to me, you know, do you think that you guys could have worked this out if you maybe went to counseling and stuff like that? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. You know, in the same sense, I wasn't given that choice. You know, I had to deal with out to me. But, you know, I realized that it was something I had to go through. And, you know, I could either sit here and be mad about it or take what it is that I learned from it and maybe help somebody else, you know, because when I was going through it, I had this lady and then my mom, you know, who had kind of went through the same type of thing. And talking to them, it was very helpful to me because I realized that, okay, I looked at my mom and I'm like, you know, she went through this and she was okay, you know. And I thought to myself, I said, you know, like I said, me and my mom were homeless, but me and my kids were never homeless. You know, I think both of us lost a lot, you know, and and I'm not ashamed to say that I did lose a lot. I lost a lot of, you know, things that I worked hard for. I lost, but when I lost it, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? It was just like, okay, it's gone. That's fine. I can always get it back.
Right.
So, you know, and I think that's what we kind of hold on to these things. But I said, you know,
like material things.
Yeah, material things, you know, and material things, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's material. But I realized that what I valued the most was my kids. My girls were what I value. We were still together. We were still okay. I was still able to provide for them. And, you know, I realized that they needed their mom. So I did what I had to take care of them. And, you know, like I tell people, I took a leave of absence from work. I went into therapy and I did what I had to make sure they were good. You know, a lot of women couldn't do that. And, you know, I'm glad I had the support system that I had because both of my parents were there, you know, but a lot of women don't have that. But I realized that I could have been worse off than what I was.
Right.
So I had to be grateful. And that's part of, you know, really kind of growing, is that I just learned to be grateful for what I have now and just being happy about it.
Is this something that can I don't know if this is the right word. Is this something that can be forgiven? Can you reach a point with your ex that y'all can be cordial?
Um, Honestly, right now, I'm not there. Not to say I haven't forgiven. Um, I've actually really just forgiven, but I've chosen to just kind of separate myself completely because it was just so much and it was too much. And to me, it's like after a while, you're kind of like, you know what? I rather you kind of be over there and I just be here in my space. Whether or not we'll ever get to that point, I don't know. You never say never, and I'm never gonna say that it may or may not happen. But even if it doesn't, I'm still okay with that. I'm not upset about that because to me, I've cleared my conscience and what I had. I've said what I had to say. And right now, I'm just in a process where I'm just healing and I'm just moving forward because that's all you can do. So, I don't know. I can't honestly say that we will, but who knows? Who knows what the future holds? And you can't really tell what's going to happen later on down the line. So,
very true, very true. So the future. Let's talk a little bit about the future. What's coming up?
Well, I know I did end up, I own WPB Networks and, I decided, which was a very hard decision. I decided to kind of shut the station down for a while. And I did that because first and foremost, I need to get my head together. Secondly, I just kind of wanted to just kind of take a break, just a break. And I know that there was a lot of rumors and talk that, WPB, it fell apart and da da da. And I don't look at it as falling apart. I just look at it as just kind of putting it to rest and then just bringing it back anew. And that's basically what I did. I changed all the logos. I kind of put together a team of people that I felt that has been with me and really fighting for WPB, and we work very well together. And we're working with the youth summer block tours, and offering our services as far as adding entertainment. I do plan to launch the station pretty soon, at least before the summer ends. I look to really launch the station, and my biggest thing right now is that Baltimore is a trendsetter when it comes to music, when it comes to entertainment. And one thing I really wanted to do was get with other online stations such as yourself and figure out a way to kind of really come together collectively and really build something strong in Baltimore. Because I feel like all of us, to me, we work better together than we do apart. And, I look at other nationalities such as Jewish people, such as other, I really, really looked at how they all work together to really build a really strong unit and a really strong community. And I feel like we can really do that. So much has happened in Baltimore. And I think entertainment is something that can really change people and bring people together.
Absolutely.
So, that's kind of, I wanted WPB to come back as more of a community source, just kind of bringing together and really branching together those stigmatites where, we're crabs in a barrel. I refuse to believe that. I reached out to a couple of people. I reached out to Tia from WMSK. For a long time, me and her, were beefing and didn't even really realize why. And I told her, I said, we're older. Like we don't have to do this. We can work together. And, me and her had a long conversation and we realized that we can do more together than we could trying to do it apart. and that's something that I really wanted to do, and I feel like it can be done, especially here in Baltimore. I just feel like it can.
Absolutely. Like you said,
Yeah.
there's a lot of talent here,
Mhm.
a lot of trend setting, a lot of, this is a special place.
It is. It
This is
really
a
is.
this is
It
a
really
special
is.
place.
Yeah, and I'm also working with Bruce from Keeping It Real, and we're working together to really kind of bring back that show and bring it back as a community show. It's more. We have so much talent here in Baltimore that goes unnoticed, and I feel like if we have an outlet, then people can really know us for more than just The Wire.
Right.
Everywhere you go, oh, The Wire. No,
That's
I want
true.
we should be known for more than that. I mean, I look at it. A lot of people don't realize that Mondawmin was the first indoor mall in the United States. Nobody knows that. Or how we set the trend for a lot of other cities. We really do. I mean, Detroit is modeling their light rail system after Baltimore. So I mean, like we can really set the bar and really be leaders in this area. And I just felt like it's not something that's hard to do.
True.
So,
Very true. I wanted to get your thoughts on a few people. I wanted to throw a few names at you.
mhm,
Um, and just tell me your thoughts on it or whatever.
mhm.
Reggie Reg.
Reggie Reg. Reggie Reg he was a pioneer. He really was. I had so much respect for him. I really do. He was such a great support system. Before he passed, me and him talk, and I'm trying to talk to him about taking care of him, and he was more concerned about me and my girls. And I looked at that like he just had that heart. He had that big heart, and I think that with him, he was that, regardless of when you saw him, he had that smile on his face. You would never know that if he was having a bad day or if he was going through something. You never knew that because he just was that spirit, that strong, spirit that you can get around. You want to have a good time. So, and that's who he was. And, I see a lot of him in his daughter, Jazzy. Me and her talk often, and I see a lot of him in her. So I tell her all the time, you have big shoes to fill, but I said, all in all, I know he was very proud of you, and I know that he will continue to be proud of you. So, Reggie Reg, I had a tremendous amount of respect for. So.
Um, Definitely. I mean, I met Reggie in '93,
Mhm.
and so yeah, so I definitely share your thoughts, share your feelings like that.
Mhm.
Um, so it's when you're in a situation and it has nothing to do with you, and you just have to react to a difficult situation.
Mhm.
A lot of times people tend to blame you
Mhm.
for the situation.
Mhm.
So that's how I wanted to set this next name up.
Okay.
Stephanie Rollins Blake.
I think with her, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with her. But I worked in the city for about 10 years. I worked under her, I worked under Dixon, I worked under O'Malley. And I think when she came in, she had a lot to deal with. And I don't ever, as a woman, do have a lot of respect for her. Like I said, I work with her. She is extremely smart. Um, things through very carefully before she makes a decision. I just think that, sometimes we kind of get to the point where you get tired. And I think with her, with everything that happened with the riots and everything, I think it just became the point where she was just like, you know what, this is just a lot. And sometimes as women, we have to realize that, that we take on so much and we don't realize what we're really taking on until it happens. So, I do have respect for her as a woman. And one thing I try not to do is, really downplay anybody. I think that she just had a really, really hard job. And after a while, that can become a lot. So, I think she'll be fine. She will. She'll be fine. Like I said, she's a very smart woman. I've had the opportunity to work with her and work under her. So I mean, she's extremely smart. So she'll be fine regardless. So
I agree. I agree. And so I want to, since we're on the topic of women, Hillary Clinton.
You know what? I think she would make a really, really good president. I really do. I think that she's going to have to deal with a lot and have to put up with a lot. Because you're in a world of basically a man's world. On old white man world. So she's going to have to deal with a lot. But I think what she has in her favor is that she has a husband who has been president. So he served 2 terms. She basically was in the White House with him. So I think that she has something that the other candidates don't really have. And Bill Clinton is still loved, very much loved. So I think that I think she'll do fine. I really do. So I mean, I hope she wins, because I would love to see a female president. So
yeah, and she's definitely the most qualified.
She is.
She's definitely the most qualified, which is a good segue into Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Thoughts on Donald Trump?
Donald Trump. Wow. I think. I just think that there is more to him than he's really letting on. I really do. I think that it won't be in the best interest, especially for the minority community, if he does become president. Because, to me, when you become president, you have to kind of be sensitive to a lot.
Right.
And I mean, not to say, he says things that people are thinking, but I don't know how far that is going to really kind of take him. But to me, I think it's more of a smokescreen. I really do. I just think that he, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to the Republican convention. I really am. So we'll see what happens. But I just think there's a lot of smoke screens, especially not only with him, but the Republican Party. So I don't know. It's kind of wait and see what's going to happen.
I think that they allowed him to be created by their policies. But I also think that Donald Trump has been running for president for about 8 years now. Yeah, ever since President Obama came, I think that his back and forth about the birth certificate and just different things, trying to get himself in the conversation.
Right.
I'm surprised that we're here. I'm surprised that he is, one step away, because I don't think he's qualified for it. But he has charisma.
He does.
And Hillary does not have that same kind of charisma. And a big part of this is a talking game, and he can talk really good.
Yeah.
Before I thought that I thought that they were going to split their vote up, and he was going to go independent, and it was going to be, one of the establishment people, and that's not obviously what happened. But I'm worried now because Bernie Sanders is strong, and he's not laying down.
He's not. He's not. But I think for him, he's kind of setting himself up too. I really do. I would not be surprised if he actually becomes Hillary's running mate.
She's got that. That's got to be the choice.
Yeah, I think he's really taking it as far as he can, because for Bernie Sanders, I think for him, if he actually becomes president, I think it would really scare a lot of people. It would really scare a lot of the good old boy network.
Oh,
definitely. I really would. And I think that if given the chance, if he does become president, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to knock him off. But
I think Trump as well. Because he makes some establishment people upset.
He does. But I think it would be more Bernie Sanders, because he
too radical.
Not as much as radical, but he's really kind of I think he's more straightforward. I think like with Donald Trump, he says it just for shock value. With Bernie Sanders, it's more of, okay, if it makes sense, let's do this. And a lot of people are like, oh, no, we can't do that. No, you can't do that. Like for me, I think with these states making marijuana legal, for him, it's like, why are we even dealing with this issue? Like, why not make this legal? Like, why are we even, like, that's how he's looking at things. And I think that would, that would cut into a lot of revenue that a lot of people are making. So, I think he will really kind of get into the pockets of a lot of the wealth here in Baltimore. In the United States. So it would really, I think people fear him more than they would fear Donald Trump.
And I think that a ticket that has the first woman president and somebody with the kind of outside of the box ideas as Bernie Sanders really would make this country uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, it would. It would definitely shake things up, and I'm hoping for that. I really am. I think it would benefit a lot of people, especially minorities. So
that ticket would. Healthcare would be affected tremendously with a Donald Trump presidency. Definitely affected.
But it would be harder. It'd be harder to get rid of because it's been around for so long. So it's really hard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. And I think people have to take into account. Used to say, okay, Donald Trump the world's just going to be over, but I don't think it's that cut and dry. You got a lot of checks and balances in place. A lot of things that President Obama wanted to do could not be done because you got to go through this layer and this layer. And so, Trump will be faced with some of those same things and stuff that he's saying now when he has the full understanding of the way things work. Once you get on the other side, a lot of stuff he's saying is not.
You realize that, okay, it's not as easy as I thought. And I think a lot of presidents really kind of have not mastered that. I think you look at people like Clinton and even Bush, like the way they mastered of the art of persuasion, the art of, really kind of getting what they really want. A lot of presidents haven't mastered that. And I think, in our generation, I think those were the two that really mastered it. Not saying that, with Clinton, it kind of worked out where, he left with a surplus, and then it kind of worked out where Bush left with, a deficit. But, he got us into this war. Like, I would have never thought he would basically talk Congress into giving him money to go into a war that ended up being like something we ended up being in for years. And we're in the situation we are now. So
a terrible situation. So that it's definitely gonna be interesting. I think you said it well. Minorities would be better suited for the Hillary regime. I think the wealthy, but Hillary is not a perfect candidate. No one is.
No, that's true.
She got stuff with her too, but
that's true.
I think she's a better choice.
Yeah, she definitely is. She definitely is.
So, I really am looking forward to being able to work with you again. And anything that I can do to help, you have our full support.
I appreciate that. I really do. Really do.
How can people stay in touch with you and find out more about you?
For the most part, they can go to my Instagram, April J1, or they can go on my Facebook page. I think that's where a lot of people contact me, on my Facebook page. From here and there, I always post stuff that I'm doing on there, so they can always reach me there. I'm currently working on getting the website back up and running. So, it's coming. I do things. I said I did things for a reason, and I'm decided that when I do launch, I want to launch, but I want to launch in a positive way. I want to launch where people feel like, what, we don't. For the longest time we had a community station. Well, for the longest time we did not have a community station. So I really wanted to build something where people can feel like all of us collectively are a community station, and a real community station, like in the community. And that's been my whole thing, especially with our youth. I've spoken to a lot of schools. So I think it's so quick for the news to cover all the negative. But, I talk to a lot of kids, and a lot of these kids, they just want somebody to know that they care.
Right.
And, I saw a young lady I think it was last week. They had like a this big thing they were giving for the kids out, like a field day. And I talked to several classes, probably about a couple of months ago. And she came to me, and I told her, because when I first met her, she came up and she was telling me, how she felt, she was being bullied, and, a lot of kids made fun of her, and she wanted to kill herself.
Oh, man.
And, I told her, I said, people are going to say things about you. And I'm not going to say that it's not going to hurt your feelings. It's not going to, make you feel sad about it. I said, but you got to realize, when people talk about you or people say things about you, it's something about them that they're trying to implement on you. A lot of people, when they talk about other people or they say things about it, they're dealing with low self-esteem themselves.
It's true.
And they feel like if they can put you down, then it builds them up. So I said, it's always look at it as, okay, if they're talking about me, then fine. You're giving me attention. Mm-hmm. And, through that conversation, I realized that she was a writer. And I believe she's in the 5th grade. And she showed me some of the stuff that she wrote, and I was so impressed. So I saw her a week ago, and she came running up to me, and she said, Miss April, and she gave me a big hug. And I was like, hey, she was like, I didn't know if you were going to come back. I was like, no, I told you I was going to come back. She said, I have something I want you to see. And she went and got her book. And I read her book, and I said, you know what? I'm so proud of you. I said, are you doing better? She was like, yeah, I'm doing much better. And she said, since that time I was there, because, I try to encourage her, but I encourage her in front of everybody. And I told everybody, I said, listen, when you bully somebody and you talk about it, I said, one thing my grandmother used to say, when you point a finger at yourself, when you point a finger at somebody, there's 4 other fingers pointing back at you. So, she said, she was, she felt better about herself. When she felt, upset or anything, she would write. And she showed me some of the stuff that she wrote. And I told her, I said, I was so proud of her. I said, just for you to even turn that corner, I said, you did that. Nobody else did that. You made the decision to want to be better. And, I told her, I said, I would really like for you to I said, if you feel comfortable, take what you wrote. And, hopefully I can get her to share it at some of the block parties. But, stuff like that, I look at and I just said, we so quick to say, oh, our kids are bad, or our kids are this and that. And I said, at the end of the day, they just want somebody to show them that, for one, we care. We actually give a damn about them, that they matter. And, I tell my kids all the time, I said, you know what? Your thoughts, your feelings, they matter. You have a right to feel the way you feel. And nobody should be able to talk you into out of what you feel, because you have a right to that. And that's something that I try to instill when I go to some of these schools. And I just realized that these kids they just want love. They just want somebody to show that, give them a hug and say, I'm proud of you. And, I think you're doing a good job. So
that's true.
That's an outside of talking to women, kids, that's just been my passion, because I feel like, they should not be forgotten. They have a future.
And
so.
but like you said, they need that that positive reinforcement, and that acknowledgement is very important.
Right.
That's the difference between going that straight path or going to what I call the dark side.
Yeah. And it's easy to do. It's really easy to do. Growing up, I like I said, I had to deal with, for the longest time, I didn't talk about being abused. I didn't talk about it. My mom didn't even know, because I did not talk about it. And it's just happened that one day I sat down, I talked to my aunt about it, not knowing why I was saying anything. But that stayed with me until I actually had to sit down and say, you know what, I have to be able to deal with this, because I never did. I never dealt with, not having my father around. I never dealt with, that anger that I had. Granted, I was finally able to get out what I felt, and it made our relationship better.
Me and
my dad, we ended up getting past it, and we ended up, having a better relationship for it. But, I think we have so many adults going around not dealing with their personal stuff. Like there's a lot of messed up adults around, and it's crazy. So, for me, if we start with the kids, and that's how it starts when you're kids, if you don't deal with it, then you have these messed up adults when they get older. So, and I often say that, I say, I didn't realize that I was, dealing with stuff until it was in my face. And then I realized, well, gosh, and I said, you know what? Either I'm gonna continue to be that person, or I'm gonna change to be the person that I need to be. And, like I said, it was, I don't have any regrets, no regrets at all. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that is good. I definitely want to thank you for coming and
appreciate it,
and having such a candid discussion. And so, like I said, whatever you need from me, you got that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I really do.
All right, so definitely one time for April J.